Welcome everyone to our first Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, presented to you by Coca-Cola. I'm Roger Hoover, great to be with you from the CTSN studios. And yes, Crimson Drive, presented by Coca-Cola. We've had it for you since January on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. And now that we're in football season, we'll have this show for you twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. Central, right back here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network Facebook page. It's time to take a look at our headlines that are presented by RJ Young, the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They provided us with this smart board so we can go through all the headlines, gearing up for what's first of all on the show today. We'll have first Coach's Checklist, as we'll be bringing you the key moments you need to know about from Coach Saban's press conference yesterday. We'll be doing the same thing on our Thursday show with what's coming up in his Wednesday press conference, but really the key points that Coach Saban wanted to make, we'll have that for you coming up first. Then we'll talk with Todd Blackledge of ESPN and ABC. He'll be the color analyst for ABC's broadcast of Alabama against Miami coming up on Saturday. So his thoughts on the Crimson Tide and the Hurricanes as we get ready for kickoff. We'll also hear from Jay Barker. Last time these two teams met, it was to determine a national champion back in the 1993 Sugar Bowl, and Jay Barker joins us to bring back memories of that game, winning the national championship in 1992, and then we'll also have some Alabama football practice footage from yesterday at the Capstone as the Crimson Tide continue getting ready for what's coming up on Saturday. Speaking of football, with some other headlines, the depth chart was released yesterday, and that's online at RolledTide.com. Bryce Young, starting quarterback. Good to see that after he kind of got to learn being around Mac Jones last year as a freshman. Now Young, stepping up as a sophomore, will be the starting quarterback for the Crimson Tide. He also met with the media yesterday. If you'd like to see that, it's available on RolledTide.com. Crimson Tide and the Hurricanes start the season 2:30 on Saturday in Atlanta. And we do want to note as well, our airtime on the radio will be 11:30 a.m. And you can also watch the booth cam available here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network Facebook page. Other headlines for Crimson Tide athletics. Of course, football getting started this weekend, but we've already seen the soccer team play for the last 2 weeks. This past weekend, they had great performances against Lamar and Southern Miss, especially the Southern Miss match went into double overtime before Felicia Knox got the game winner. Great to see that for the Tide. Now the Tide getting ready for Samford, team that has won the Southern Conference 7 years in a row. The Bulldogs making the trip from Birmingham, getting ready for Alabama on Thursday night at 7 p.m. on SEC Network Plus. The volleyball team this past weekend started the season in West Virginia at the Marshall Invitational, won all 3 matches they played there. Great to see that for Coach Devine and the Crimson Tide, and now they'll be at home at Foster Auditorium this weekend for the Crimson Tide Invitational, taking on Troy, Buffalo, as well as Southern Miss. So again, Crimson Tide getting ready for the start of the season. Coach Saban had his first weekly press conference. He always meets with the media on noon on Mondays, and we'll now take you to Coach's Checklist as we dive into what's coming up for the Crimson Tide this week, getting ready for Miami.
Well, I think most of our players would tell you that they're excited about having the opportunity to get into game week, prepare for another team, not be hitting on each other. So this is a great opportunity for our team. I think this is a very challenging game for us against a very, very good team. And, you know, our players have to be able to stay focused on playing one play at a time, especially in opening games. I think sometimes things happen in opening games that are unexpected, maybe you're unprepared for. And you got to be able to adapt and adjust and play the next play and not be outcome oriented, but stay focused on what you need to do to be able to play well in the next play. I also think that's very important in preparation. Every team sort of defines itself by the identity that they create, the effort, the toughness, the discipline, the intangibles that they play with. And you know, it'll be no different for this team. They have a great opportunity to do that against a very good team, and we always look forward to playing in Atlanta. It's you know, been a city that's been very welcoming to us, and the atmosphere and environment there has always been fantastic in whatever venue that we play. You know, specifically about Miami, I think this is a really, really good team. They've got 19 out of 22 starters back from last year's team that went 8-3. So they've got 10 starters back on offense. They've got 9 starters back on defense. quarterback King is a really, really good player. They've got outstanding skill guys, 2 very productive receivers coming back from last year. They've got good runners. So this is a really, really good team. This is going to be a really challenging game for us on both sides of the ball. They're good on special teams. Their punter is like number 2 in the nation last year in net punt or whatever. They've got really good team speed. These guys play hard. They're very aggressive. So it's going to be a very challenging game for us, and it's a big game for our players to, sort of establish the identity of what's this team going to be? Who are we going to be? It doesn't matter what we've been in the past. It's all about what we do, in this game. Yeah, Bryce has done a nice job. I think he's very confident. He understands the offense really well. He's accurate with the ball. As I've mentioned before, the focus has been, can we get the players around him to play a little bit better with him? So that's going to, help him probably be able to execute a little bit better. And that's been what we've worked hard on, and I think we're making good progress in that regard.
Great to hear from Coach Saban with Coach's Checklist. Again, we'll have that coming up for you on Thursday as well, as he meets with the media following practice on Wednesday. So we'll get, again, his big 3 thoughts from those press conferences, and that's something you can look forward to each and every week on Tuesdays and Thursdays here on Crimson Drive. What we'll also do is talk to a member of the media, kind of from a national perspective. Kind of later in the week, we will talk to some people that cover the Crimson Tide on a daily basis. We'll have our Hey Coach preview with Eli Gold, of course, as well as an interview with a writer that covers Alabama on a daily basis, but we always like to take a look nationally at what's being said about the Crimson Tide, and folks watching nationally will be listening to Sean McDonough call the game on ABC, and Todd Blackledge serve as his color analyst on the ABC broadcast. So Todd was gracious enough to spend some time with me this morning breaking down Alabama and Miami as we get ready for the 2021 season opener. Todd, it's finally here. Football season, I'm sure. The first game of the year, no matter what game you're calling, you're excited for it, but especially Alabama and Miami, you got to be really excited for Saturday.
Well, I really am. I mean, it's just going to be good to be back in a stadium with lots of fans and the pageantry and the excitement and the energy. I think players on both teams are going to just feel that and just feed off of that. And it's a great matchup. Obviously the defending national champions and by most accounts, everybody thinks the best team in the country coming in again against a team that has some pretty exciting talent and a little momentum off of last season. So it should be a great matchup.
When you look at this Alabama team, what stands out to you the most? What's the strength going to be heading into the season opener?
Well, I think the strength will be their defense. I think that it's a team that defensively got better as the year went on last year. They had a game early in the year against Ole Miss where they gave up a bunch of yards and points. And then really the only other game was the SEC championship game against Florida where they gave up a lot. And in both cases, you had 2 offenses that played outstanding, 2 quarterbacks that played outstanding against Alabama in those games. And a lot of the guys that played last year are back. I think they will be a better pass rushing team this year than they've been in the last few years. I think back to 2015, 2016, where they had over 50 sacks in both of those seasons. I think they're going to have the ability to pressure quarterbacks and harass quarterbacks the way they did in those years. May not put up the same numbers, but they'll affect the quarterback. And then that also kind of leads to and translates into turnovers on the back end. So I think the strength of the team early on will be their defense. And, that makes sense. Even though they reload really well, you lose, that many first round draft picks off of an offense. It's going to take a little time to get that going again.
The center of everything for this Alabama offense is sophomore quarterback Bryce Young. We got to see him a little bit last year, but now he fully takes the reins as a starter. What do you want to see the most out of him week 1?
Well, he's just got to play within himself. He's very talented, obviously, can really throw the football. He's not as big in stature as Mac Jones was last year, but he's also more mobile and athletic. So he's got a little bit more dynamic ability in that regard. But he's just got to be efficient and not try to do too much. He's still surrounded by really good players. And, I think this first game, it's a matter of just all the little things and the communication between he and new offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien, making sure they're on the same page and they're doing, they're playing the game and allowing the game to unfold the way that they want. He certainly has the ability to make big plays, but I think it'll be important for him to just kind of get into the flow of the game and let the game come to him.
Coach Saban likes to talk about, no matter who the offensive coordinator is, it's still Alabama's offense. But you mentioned that Bill O'Brien does come in as offensive coordinator. What can we expect from him?
Well, I think, first of all, he's smart enough to realize that what they've been doing at Alabama the last few years has been really good, and really what Alabama's been doing offensively ever since Lane Kiffin first arrived in Tuscaloosa. They've been doing things really well offensively. So I think he will keep a lot of what's been the case. It would be silly to change all the terminology and all the wording, because it's easier for a few coaches to learn new things than it is asking an entire offense of 18 to 22-year-olds to learn something new. So I think he'll keep a lot of it intact. The one thing I do know about Bill O'Brien, remembering when he was coaching at Penn State and then even in the NFL, he likes to utilize tight ends. He likes to throw the football to tight ends in the middle of the field, because typically in college football, linebacker coverage in the middle part of the field is not as good as it is on the outside in the perimeter of defenses. Now, Alabama covers passes, in the passing game as well as anybody. So he sees that day in and day out. But by and large, in college football, linebacker coverage in the middle of the field is not nearly as good as it is on the outside.
Let's go to the other sideline with the Miami Hurricanes. Where do they match up the best with Alabama?
Well, it's hard to say where they match up. I think the one thing that they have going in their favor is they've got a very dynamic quarterback in De'Aaron King. And by all accounts, he's fully recovered from the knee surgery that the injury he suffered in the bowl game. But he is electric and dynamic, and he's been doing it his entire career, both at Houston and then last year in 11 starts for Miami. So he gives them a chance to be competitive because he is a true dual threat guy. And he's an excellent passer. Now, I think they've got some good wideouts. The addition of Rambo from Oklahoma was a good get for them because he's a legitimate guy. So you have an offensive line that I would not say was great, but they're all back and they all started every game last year. They've got experience there. They've got depth there. And then defensively, they've always, since Manny Diaz has been there, they've always been able to create negative plays and get, plays be havoc plays and create turnovers. They just have not been very efficient in stopping the run. And that's where they're going to have to, really shore up this year if they want to take the next step in their development. And they'll get tested right away by Alabama in how well they can stop the running game.
Yeah, you mentioned Manny Diaz, and now he's also the defensive coordinator along with being the head coach. How have you seen him grow over the past few years?
Well, I think you automatically grow into a job. He's always was pretty good as a defensive coordinator. He grew in that regard as a coordinator. Did a nice job for the 3 years he was the coordinator at Miami under Mark Richt. And now as a head coach, each year he learns a little bit more. You just learn how to manage your team, how to manage your roster, how to manage your calendar, all the little things, game management. I think he just gets better year in and year out. Of course, last year, was such a challenge with all the other things going on with COVID and the protocols and everything. Hopefully he or none of us will ever have to go through another year like that.
We're talking on this Tuesday. I know coming up, you have a trip to Tuscaloosa to go see the Crimson Tide practice. And when you do get to cover Alabama, get to see the practice, talk with Coach Saban, what do you like the most about getting to visit with him, whether it's about football things away from the field?
Well, first of all, it's going to be great to get back to seeing a practice. We spent all of last season, even though I was out doing games, I never went to a practice, never was on, at a football facility, never met in person with a coach. So didn't go down the field before the game. So, I'm looking forward to going and just being on the practice field, whether indoors or outdoors Thursday in Tuscaloosa, and just seeing guys with my own eyes and, watching guys run around and seeing what guys look like from my own eye level. That's really helpful and beneficial for me. And as far as Coach Saban, he and I go back a long way. We have a really good relationship. I think, he's excellent for us from a TV standpoint. He gets the big picture. He gives us access to his practice, to him, to his coordinators, to his players. And that's not true of everybody, but he understands the value of, we're basically doing a 3.5 to 4 hour promotional, infomercial on him and his program and everything that's good about Alabama. So I really enjoy spending time with Coach, and, my dad being a coach, and he knows my dad, and they've got a lot of mutual acquaintances and friends and guys they coach together with. So it's always good for me to see Coach Saban.
Well, we know whenever you make a trip to a college campus, you love to hit up the local eateries. Any must-visit places on your Tuscaloosa trip coming up?
Well, it depends on what time I get around there. I mean, I've got about a handful of places there in Tuscaloosa that I like, and we when I used to do Taste of the Town, I think I did 5 of them in Tuscaloosa, and I think we're going to try to bring that little thing back this year. So that's a pretty exciting thing, and so I don't know which one I'll hit. It depends on what time I actually roll into town.
Well, stay tuned for that. Well, Todd, we're certainly looking forward to Saturday, Alabama against Miami and Atlanta. Just thank you so much for your time with us on the Crimson Tide Sports Network to break down the game, and we hope you have a great broadcast. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks. You. Good to be with you.
Really a lot of fun to catch up with Todd Blackledge, a great quarterback in his own right back in his playing days at Penn State, and someone else that enjoyed a lot of success as a quarterback, Jay Barker, who in 1992 led Alabama to the national championship game, and to get it done, Crimson Tide had to play on New Year's Day 1993 against the Miami Hurricanes, another team that was vying for a national championship game. You know the rest. Alabama got the victory as the school was able to claim its 12th national championship with the victory down in New Orleans. And now Jay Barker, of course, is a radio host with the Jay Barker Show, somebody that I've known for a long time, and it's really fun to catch up with him to hear about that experience back in 1993. Again, we keep saying 93. It was New Year's Day 1993, but looking back to the 92 season, and this is the first of what we're going to have for you on Tuesdays here on Crimson Drive, a visit with an Alabama legend. It's always going to correspond with the game that's coming up, so when we're thinking 92 Alabama against Miami, who better to talk to than the quarterback, Jay Barker? It's Alabama against Miami. Does it feel like just yesterday, or has it been a little bit since we last had the Crimson Tide and the Hurricanes?
Yeah, 29 years. Hard to believe it's been 29 years. It seems like it's been a while. I mean, and I'm surprised that the two teams have not had a matchup since then. But yeah, what a night that was, man! So much fun, and I think with your teammates, anybody that when you win a championship, it's like a fraternity that you stay close, and you do with every team. But I think it's different when you win championships.
Yeah, what did it mean to you when you saw Miami pop up on the schedule, knowing it's a neutral site game, knowing Alabama has a chance to really start a special season with the Hurricanes?
Yeah, so I was hoping it would be a year later, because it would be our 30th anniversary of our national championship, that we could have had this matchup. But I look forward. I'm going to get Gino Toretto on the show this week, some other guys from Miami, and also some of the former teammates of mine, to talk about what that was like 29 years ago. And now to see Miami, we're in kind of the position that they were in. They were, I think, on a 29-game win streak. They'd won national championships, kind of the dynasty of that time. And we came in and dethroned them, and really beat them 34-13 in a dominant way. And I think, that's where I think Miami's hoping that's going to be the case for them. And this guy, I don't think it's going to be the case, but they're hoping maybe they'll get back some redemption from that loss in the way that they got beat 29 years ago.
Yeah, let's go back 29 years. We talked so much before about the 92 season, especially the Alabama and Florida SEC championship game, because it was the first one in history. Florida had a chance to derail Alabama's hopes for a national championship, but you get that win, and then you're playing the Hurricanes. So was there any threat, kind of an emotional hangover after the Florida game, because so much was on the line?
There was so much on the line, and Roger, I really think it helped us prepare for the media attention, the stuff that we'd have to deal with once we got to the game in New Orleans. But we also had that feeling of why this year, why do we have to play a championship game in this year, 92, but it just worked out. And actually that was a team that beat us last in 91 and beat us bad in Gainesville. So it was redemption for us to get past that, to get that taste out of our mouths, to finally to beat them, and to beat them in the first ever SEC title game. The great thing about that year too, is that, as a lot of you remember, that was our 100th year of football for Alabama. So we were celebrating a century of football. I remember that summer I went to great event at the BJCC in Birmingham, and they had the Century team, all Century team. And man, you talk about great players that were there. And, here I am, a kid, 19 years old, sophomore quarterback, and been able to live my dream. And then I'm in a tuxedo, and I get to get a picture between Joe Namath and Kenny Stabler. And, that picture's been put up in numerous places around the state and other places. But that to me, that year in itself, 92, is just a very special year, even outside of the championship game and stuff. So thinking back on that season, leading up to that season, all the hard work we put into it, man, it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, and Miami was able to pick up a national championship just a few years earlier with a win against Alabama. Were some teammates of yours from the '89 team especially motivated to face the Hurricanes, knowing that recent history?
Yes, I mean, they all. I remember Prince Wembley. I think he got like an unsportsmanlike conduct flag for doing some kind of dance after he made a catch in '89. And I think for a lot of those guys, they did. They wanted to go back and have a chance to beat a team like Miami, and he was from Miami, so it made it more special for Prince. But it's one of those things where I think you just, when you get over those hurdles and you realize how to win, and Coach Stallings really taught us how to win, like the competitor, how to take each down, and the approach of what a winner takes. And the same thing, Coach Saban. I mean, he called it something different. Coach Saban called it the process. But it was also his process of getting us to where we believed in each other. We had a great team chemistry, and we won a lot of games together. I mean, those teams, we went 31 straight without losing. That was a pretty amazing run there from 91 to 93.
Well, getting ready for that matchup with Miami, of course, you're in New Orleans getting ready for the Sugar Bowl, and that means players are going to head to Bourbon Street eventually.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the Hurricanes early on, and how much did you guys stay out of trouble leading up to the game?
Yeah, we went out a couple of nights early on, and then realized that they were trying to pick fights with some of our teammates, especially the offensive and defensive linemen. And so we all kind of got together and said, let's stay in. And we stayed in, and we said, we'll just do film work, we'll play cards, we'll do whatever. But we have a lifetime to celebrate, a lifetime to go back to Bourbon Street, a lifetime to be in the French Quarter. Let's make this happen. And I think that was really a great move on our part, and our senior leaders and our captains that made that decision. And we stayed in, we bonded as a team, and went out that night and just took care of business. So, but the Bourbon Street, I mean, I think all the coaches, everybody were kind of worried about, how many players would sneak out. Now I saw a thing recently, and I think it was on about a high school team, but they were taping the doors so that if they came out of the doors, they could see the rip tape. They didn't do that to us. They should have done it at that point in time, but they're very, very smart way of kind of handling that, making sure guys don't leave the room or go places they shouldn't be. Especially the night before a football game.
How do you calm down your nerves before a national championship game? You mentioned, the Florida game helped you play rivalry games against Auburn and Tennessee, but it's got to be different for a matchup like that, I imagine.
It is. I mean, I couldn't even feel my feet when I ran out on the stadium. The pregame, when we came out and the fans were going crazy, it was like I was walking on air. It was the weirdest feeling I've ever had. But it was a great feeling. I think, being a guy that grew up in Alabama, I was a Bear boy. Like, I wanted to play for Coach Bryant. I feel like I got the next best thing in Gene Stallings, all the mannerisms and all the DNA that came with that, with his coaching staff that have played or coached for Coach Bryant. And then also think that the fans themselves, we were back in a place that we hadn't been in 13 years, and back in the Sugar Bowl after that 79 national championship game. And, Alabama fans at that time, it's not like this now, I don't think, as much. But they kind of sat on their hands. They didn't really yell a lot. They were more conservative. They were kind of like, we know the game of football type deal. That night they went nuts. That night they were loud. It was a great edge for us, for the players, the adrenaline rush that you'd get from the fans, and just them really keeping our defense up, making it tough for Gino at the line of scrimmage with some of his checks and stuff. It's just a really, really great night. But yeah, always, if I didn't have butterflies, I love that feeling. I really do. I tell people all the time, it's not anxiousness. It's just, you get those butterflies, you want to get those first hits underneath your belt. But that to me was one of the greatest feelings about sports, or about anything, that you're wanting to compete in and wanting to perform and have a great night.
What are the plays and the moments that stick out to you the most as Alabama got 34-14 win?
Probably, a couple of my own. And then also the biggest one is Teague. I remember on the sideline, with Mount Moore, we were discussing kind of what we're going to do next series. And at that time, we already had things rolling pretty well in the run game, especially. And, we just like, man, everything's going our way. Things are happening. It's been such a positive night. And then when Lamar Thomas caught that ball, we're like, oh, the next thing we know, we see like a lightning bolt shot out. And that's George T. runs him down, takes the ball away. and then starts running back. And then, all that one of the greatest plays ever in Alabama history, but it didn't count because Antonio London was offsides. So that play is not even in the record books. There's nowhere to be found. You can see it on video, but nowhere to be found in the record books. But that to me was the play that stood out the most. And then, always the end of the game, the celebration, watching, Coach Stallings get lifted up and carried off, on the field. I look back at that game and watch Ruth Ann, his wife, is up in the press box or in the suite box for the coach's wives, and she's, putting up number one, and and John Mark's there with her as well, and the family. So those are a lot of just great memories thinking back on that moment. And like I said, our last camp, it's been 29 years.
You guys said you started to stay in eventually on Bourbon Street before the game. Did you guys have a good time later that night?
We did. And I'll tell you what, something happened to me. I went back so we had this celebration in the locker room. And I had to get taped up and stuff. It had like turf burns and stuff. That was the old turf back in the day when they didn't give it all. So I got back to the room and I fell asleep. So my parents were downstairs waiting on me and some other people as well. Next thing I know, I hear knock on the door. And I promise you, when I woke up, I went, did I just dream that we just played this game? I mean, so I looked down, I saw the wrappings on my arm. I saw blood kind of like coming out of the wrappings. But I'm like, okay, thank God. Because it was the weirdest feeling. But then I actually described that in the book that I wrote, In Due Time, and how that, you can fall asleep for 10 or 15 minutes, like you've been asleep forever, and you can have a dream or whatever else. It was weird. So that was a weird moment. But so after that, yes, we went out, family, friends, and just had a great time celebrating the championship, and really just seeing all the Bama fans so happy, and no Miami fans to be found anywhere, even though they were a ton running their mouth before the game. After the game was a lot different story.
Well, you mentioned coming up next year, 30th anniversary of that team. What's the bond been like for that group? I know you've gotten together several reunions throughout the years, but I'm sure you guys are still pretty tight.
We are. I mean, it's been amazing. And it's been fun to watch a lot of the guys go on that have had a lot of success in different areas of life. Even guys who were, walk-ons, guys that maybe a lot of people don't know their names, that have gone on to have successful businesses and to lead banks and all types of stuff. And Dabo being the head coach at Clemson. I mean, that's, and a bunch of our guys are coaching with him and they've had a ton of success. So that's been, I think all those things, we just had a real good bond. And a lot of us were from the state of Alabama at that time. A lot more percentage of guys grew up being Alabama or Auburn fans. We didn't even really meet each other till we got there. I mean, like now the recruits, they meet each other in recruiting stuff. And like Antonio and I, we didn't know each other. Chris Anderson, which Antonio was actually being recruited more by Miami, and I was being recruited more by Auburn than Alabama. So that, and I think back on just those things and some other guys who ended up playing at Alabama, if Bill Curry doesn't leave and Coach Stallings doesn't come in, a lot of the championship team would not have been there. The core group of leaders and guys that had a lot to do as far as winning that championship. So but yes, everybody stayed close. We always have so much fun. We always have kind of our own kind of inside jokes about certain things. We remember about certain players. And again, I think too, our national championship team, and I'm not saying Saban's doesn't, but it's not the same verbiage, the same, like we have a DNA that connects us back to the Bryant guys because of all the coaches and Coach Stallings that were so much like him, that said a lot of the same things that Coach Bryant did. So I think we were always so easily kind of accepted into that group as well before we won the championship at 92. So it's been a great 29 years, I guess you might say, of guys enjoying the championship, still celebrating it, and fans always coming up saying, my favorite championship of all time. And I think it's because it's set within about a 30-year period. 13 had been since 79, and then 17 years later before they won it in 2009. I'll never forget Greg McElroy is like, man, I got to celebrate mine for like 2 years. You got to be the national championship quarterback for 17 years. And which is true. And it was amazing to be that, but also you wanted to win another one, and get back. And man, Saban is definitely taking care of that in short order.
Certainly has. And now 29 years later, probably the most surprising thing you could have been told that night is there's going to be another Barker wearing number 7 in the quarterback room for the Crimson Tide when Alabama and Miami meet once again. Just what can you tell us about Braxton, how he's done throughout preseason camp and getting to work alongside all the great quarterbacks that Alabama has, led by Bryce Young?
Yeah, his dream was like mine, to put on that crimson jersey. And I'm so proud of him. He works his tail off. He's doing everything he can to help his team and teammates. He really loves Bill O'Brien. He loves Sark. He loved all the guys that worked before that. But Bill O'Brien, just from his words, is that he's so approachable and he really tries to coach each player, even individually, even as much as he does the quarterback room, and lets them make a lot of decisions at the line of scrimmage. And I think Coach O'Brien really thinks this is one of the smartest groups he's been around. I mean, I know he's made that statement before. He's made it to them, talking about the quarterback room. So, he loves it. I'm proud of him. I love looking down and seeing Parker 7 on the field. And I tell him all the time, work as hard as you can. Opportunities may come down the road, but more importantly, just be a great teammate. And he's been that.
Certainly has. And of course, you continue to break down Alabama football daily with the Jay Barker radio show that you have on stations all throughout the state of Alabama. And as we wrap things up, Jay, just what are your thoughts heading into this game? What kind of game do you expect between the Crimson Tide and the Hurricanes?
Yeah, I tell you, Roger, I think this may be one of the best defenses that Coach Saban has had. I mean, the depth in all the positions, you look at that 3-4, just those 4 linebackers. I mean, thinking about having Henry Toto, or whatever I said, I always get that thing mixed up. Will Anderson, Will Anderson, all the guys that are back there, Christian Harris, and it's one of those groups that's very, very special. So I think the defense will carry this team maybe early on. I think still Bryce is going to continue to mature and grow and do the things that he needs to do to continue to get better and better. He's got an excellent mind for the game. He's got an excellent arm, can make all the throws. His players believe in him, and Coach Saban definitely believes in him. He is, I think, going to be a dynamic playmaker for Alabama. He's got a ton of weapons around him. It's just right now, getting in that game situation, getting that experience, because look at all the production we lost from last year, and 2 first-round draft picks at the wide receiver and the running back in Najee, and I mean the offensive line. I mean, they've lost a lot of production, but they got a lot of talented players. I mean, Coach Saban, it's really been amazing how he's, I don't say plug and play, but definitely has had the talent, the depth there every year to bring guys back in, or now with the transfer portal to get the talent that needs to be on the field to win championships. And so I think this game should be a fun one to watch. I hope Alabama, I think they should cover. What the spread is, 18.5, 19 points. I'd love to see that, and love to see them have a great offensive performance. I think the key is going to be, can Miami score against this defense? And I'll be surprised if they're able to put up a lot of numbers or points on them. But we'll see. It's game 1, so we'll learn a lot.
We certainly will. Well, Jay, thank you so much for joining us as one of our Alabama legends this week, as we throw it back to 92, the Sugar Bowl, and 93 between Alabama and Miami. Just thank you so much, and I look forward to visiting with you again down the road. Roll Tide. No doubt, man. We'll see you Wednesday on the show. As always, Roll Tide. Thanks, man. Mentioned the Jay Barker radio show that's from noon to 2 on stations all across Alabama. I usually go on that show at 12:30 on Wednesdays, so that's what Jay was talking about. Always enjoy catching up and talking Alabama football with one of our great Alabama legends, Jay Barker. And again, we'll have interviews with legendary players in Crimson Tide history all throughout this football season, not just here on Crimson Drive on Tuesdays, but also you can catch that pregame on our football radio broadcast as well. Before we wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, we want to take you to the Hank Crisp indoor facility and let you watch some Alabama football. Alabama Athletics was able to release some practice footage from yesterday, so as we're all in a football mood, let's actually watch some Crimson Tide practice before we wrap up Crimson Drive. I am ready for some football after watching some Alabama practice, and now we're getting closer to Saturday and the start of the 2021 season as Alabama looks to defend its national championship from a year ago and try to get the school's 19th national championship here in Tuscaloosa. But still a lot of work to do, including on this show, Crimson Drive. Again, today was the debut of Crimson Drive on Tuesdays. We'll be going live Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central, right back here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network Facebook page, archived, of course, on our YouTube channel as well, and you can pick up the link on Twitter. So we're going to be back coming up in just 2 days on Thursday when we get ready for Alabama and Miami. We'll have a Hey Coach preview with Eli Gold. We'll also check in with the voice of the Miami Hurricanes, Joe Zagacki, as he'll be talking all things Hurricanes, getting you geared up for that matchup, as well as a conversation with Alabama football beat writer Nick Kelly of the Tuscaloosa News, who is breaking down Alabama and Miami for not only this year, but also looking back to the game we talked about with Jay Barker. He had a lot of good coverage in the Tuscaloosa News, looking back to Alabama's 12th national championship back in 92. And now again, we're here in 2021, hoping that this will be another championship season for Alabama football. But we want to certainly thank Todd Blackledge of ABC and ESPN for joining us, as well as Jay Barker on today's show. And thanks as well to our producer, Ethan Carabin, for putting together this show for you as well. Again, we're going to be right back at it Thursday at 2 p.m. here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Another edition of Crimson Drive presented to you by Coca-Cola.